This is Hard Parking, sponsored by Wright Honda and Wright Toyota out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm your host, Jhae Pfenning, recording from my home studio in Gilbert, Arizona. Weather's weird around here. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. I was on a conference this last Monday with some people from Dallas, planning NS Expo, Make-A-Wish Foundation, actually. And it was 95 degrees there. 95 degrees. Is the world ending? I don't know. According to Facts Daily and a few other sources, carrots were originally purple or yellow, but they were selectively bred to be orange in honor of the Dutch royal family, the House of Orange. So before you say, that's crazy, because that is crazy, you guys know me. I like to fact check everything because it sounded kind of weird. I did find several places online kind of claiming the same thing. One was a vineyard, some couple other blogs. But according to USA Today, that is a false claim. The claim that carrots used to be purple, yellow, and white until the 1600s when the Dutch created the orange carrots is false. Based on our research, an expert told USA Today the first written records show carrots were purple and yellow until the 1500s. So that doesn't mean they weren't originally orange. Orange carrots first appeared in artwork in Italy and Spain in the 1500s, and they were naturally occurring, not created by the Dutch. So is there any records before the 1500s, like legit records that they weren't already orange? Or maybe the Dutch and somebody else crossbred them to become orange. So I don't know. What do you think? We have all sorts of apples today that didn't exist 20, 30, 40 years ago because we've bred them all into a lab. I believe a Fuji apple is man-made, and Lord knows how many other vegetables have been crossbred, plants, flowers. Who knows? Or maybe, who cares? So those of you into cryptocurrency may have noticed that Bitcoin surpassed 64,000 for the first time since November of 2021, which is back when everybody was so hyped, we were all buying into it. And the last laugh always remains with people who had been invested in Bitcoin for 5, 6, 7 years or more. I cashed out, or I thought I cashed out, but then I found some sitting in my Bitcoin wallet. So, of course, I rolled that back over into Coinbase, and I'm enjoying the ride. Because if you invested back when it was 48,000, 50,000, early 60,000s, you lost your ass for the last 2.5 years. So it's interesting to see what's happening with that. There's all sorts of reasons, I'm sure, why it shot through the moon for the first time ever. I think even a year ago, it was only $19,000. But this isn't a Bitcoin. This isn't a cryptocurrency podcast. Coming up on today's show, we get into a little bit of car news. It's going to be a shorter episode because I have travel ahead of me. I'm going to New Orleans. This is Friday, March 1st. Happy leap year to those of you who got left behind yesterday on the 29th of February. And before you say it, definitely going to stay away from the expensive ATM machines. Also, I bought a new car. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it and why I decided to buy that car. All that and more coming up after this word from 4Wheel Online. For over a decade, 4Wheel Online has been bringing the best truck accessories and truck parts to enhance the appearance and performance of all trucks and SUVs. They are dedicated to providing an extensive range of upgrades that will match any maker model on the road. The truck products cover everything to give your truck a custom look and added functionality. Need a wheel and tire package? Head over and use the configuration tool. They carry all the major brands of wheels and tires, so go get outfitted today. Visit them online at 4Wheel Online. Chrysler is recalling more than 330,000 Jeep Grand Cherokees due to steering wheel issues, according to the Associated Press and probably multiple other sources. This dated February 28th of 2024, Chrysler is recalling more than 330,000 Jeep Grand Cherokees because of a wheel issue that may cause drivers to lose control of their vehicles. The automaker says in documents posted this week by the U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or the NHTSA, that the upper control arm ball joint and steering knuckle may separate, causing the wheel to fall outward, which could result in losing control of the vehicle and increasing the risk of crash. Yeah, sure. If one of the front wheels comes off, the car does an endo and probably rolls over a few times. However, the company says it's not aware of any crashes or injuries due to the problem. Individuals with impacted vehicles will be able to go to dealers to have the upper control arm pinch bolts replaced for free. Fisker, the electric vehicle company founded by auto designer Henrik Fisker, announced in its fourth quarter earnings Thursday that it might not have enough money to survive another year. The company announced that there was substantial doubt about Fisker's ability to continue as a going concern. In order to have the cash to do business through the next 12 months, the company will have to raise more money from investors. Fisker's stock was trading at 75 cents a share at the close of, Jesus God, 75 cents a share. Does that make it a penny stock? Close of Thursday and dropped to a little more than 40 cents this morning. This is as of a couple days ago. Fisker lost $463 million while taking in $200 million in revenue in the fourth quarter of 2023. That included a $325 million adjustment related to convertible notes. I don't know what that means. I can't pretend that I know what any of this shit means. I just know they're losing money, and it's crazy. The EV world is crazy. So you may not have known this, but for the last 10 years, Apple has been trying to develop their own vehicle, their own electric car, and they have now bailed on the project. Many employees working on the project, this is according to CNN.com, known internally as Project Titan, will be moved to the company's artificial intelligence division, according to Bloomberg, which first reported the decision, citing people with knowledge on the matter. The news comes as electric vehicle sales have disappointed, prompting several major car makers to pull back on investments and slash prices. AI, on the other hand, is having a moment, and Apple's reported shift in resources could help it close the gap with rivals such as Microsoft and Google, which have stolen a march on the breakthrough technology. I think it should have been called the iCar. And finally, did I mention that I just bought a new vehicle? So yes, I just bought a vehicle. I bought well, first off, let's kind of go into the whole psyche. So I've really liked these K-class vehicles for a while. You've seen them online. You've seen them in person, depending on where you live. There's a lot of states that don't allow them. There's a few states that do. There's a few states that allow them initially, and then they decide they don't allow them. Arizona is one of those states that do allow them, but I did find out when I went to the DMV that it's classified as an ATV, although I can still drive it on the road. More on that a little bit later. You guys know I always wanted something. I like things unique and different. I've always liked tiny vehicles. I always joke with my wife that I'm going to get a Bobcat, the little personal construction vehicle that digs holes in yards. And I told her I'm going to buy a Bobcat and I'm just going to drive around at 2:00 in the morning and just dig holes in people's yards. It'll be the biggest mystery, although it's probably loud as hell. So I'd have to put an EV motor on there so it's super quiet, and then I could probably do it. Here's the thing. If you can't hear someone stealing your catalytic converter, you're probably not going to hear a Bobcat digging a hole in your yard. Just saying. But anyway, I have wanted an Acti van. If you want to know what an Acti van looks like, that's ACTY, a Honda Acti. Just Google it. Ryan Eversley, who has yet to come on this show, is kind of famously known for having one for his podcast, Dinner with Racers. So it's orange and white and black and whatnot. And my good friend Peter Cunningham has one. And I rode in it last July when I was up in Wisconsin for the Vintage Car Weekend. Yes, that's the same weekend that I don't think I ever publicly said it on this podcast, but I did say it on the Patreon. So I was driving around his right-hand drive 4-door Acura Integra, and I went backwards full send because I'd missed my turn at the racetrack and went right into a post. And so we're still working on that. The body shop guy hasn't got around to looking at that car yet. But when he does, I'm going to owe a rear bumper, possibly a rear trunk lid, and I've already replaced the taillights. So I have some experience in a right-hand drive vehicle. Fast forwarding. So I wanted something small, cool, fun. You look at these Acti vans, these Acti pickup trucks. Daihatsu makes one. Subaru Sandbar makes one. And they look like they're a lot of fun. And it doesn't cost a lot of money. You can get one for $6,000, $7,000. If you pay $8,000 for one, you've probably paid too much. There's people who like to import them and put the wheels on them, put the body kit on them, give them a paint job, and then turn around and sell them for $11,000, $12,000, $13,000. I think you're an idiot if you buy one for $13,000 or $14,000 because I just told you can get one for $6,000 or $7,000. Sometimes you can get it for $5,000. I sent a guy, Shad is his name, Shad Shad Huntley of Driving Ambition, which is a performance shop in California, to go look at the one that I purchased. And we got to talking, and he has an Acti pickup truck, and he actually bought it from a friend for $1,500. So there's quite a range there. So anyway, I wanted something fun and unique and different because not everybody has one, but the one that everybody does have, if they do have one, is the Acti. So what happens when you buy something that everybody else has? There's two things. Number one, people are used to looking at it. So that's that's not really a negative. It's just because you still don't see them very often. It's almost like people ask me, okay, do you love your Acura and NSX Type S? I said, yes. Okay, why did you go with the white wheels? I go, because I love it. It looks great, but I don't want my NSX to look like everybody else's NSX. So there's kind of a joke there. Number one, there's not a lot of these vehicles, period. So some people never see one. If you live here in Phoenix, you're going to see one every day. But when you do see one, you don't want your car to be confused with someone else's. That's the same reason my old NSX was so modded out and just tricked out and looked really cool. And then when it was black with the gold wheels, the goldish wheels, then you could say, hey, Jay, was that you driving down the 60? I go, no, I'm in Florida. Either someone stole my car or somebody has a car that looks very similar to mine. So, but the positive of buying something that everybody else has is there's no guesswork. So the Honda Acti trucks, vans, the other manufacturers, you've been able to import those for a while because we have the 25-year import rule. And some of you listening know all about this. Some of you have no idea. So in order to import a vehicle from another country, it has to be 25 years or older to be eligible to be imported. And why is that? There's crash things, there's safety things. Feel free to look it up online. This isn't that kind of show. I would bore you to death. Plus, I don't have it memorized because I don't give a shit. All I know is it's 25 years. So what happens is if you get a vehicle that was made in 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, we've been able to import those now for the last 5 or 6 years, which means, again, everybody has one, although they don't. But now you know what wheels fit, what fenders fit, what all sort of customization you can do to it because somebody has not only done it, but there's people who have already started producing those parts to make your life easier and take all the guesswork out. Now you can pick the wheels. Okay, these 30 wheels fit this vehicle. Which one do I want? You know, do I want the tires to stick out? Do I not want them to stick out? Do I want fender flares? Do I want roll bars? Do I want this? Do I want that? And I know I'm losing some of you people, so just bear with me. So that's the positive of picking something that a lot of other people already have. I take that back to when my son had his first car, which was a 2002 Audi A4. By the time he got it, it was, 2013 or 14. Now, we gave him the car. My wife gave him the car. I wanted him to pay for the car. But regardless, when he would have issues, he would ask me, hey, my car's making a weird noise, or my car's doing this, or my car's doing that. And that's back when I was traveling all the time. And so the thought was, well, what's it doing? I can't hear it. I can't be there. Go to AudiZine, go to the Audi forums, because no matter what happens to you while you're driving that vehicle, what noises you hear, somebody else, tens of thousands of other people at some point have seen it, because at this point in 2014, or maybe it was 2013, being a 2002 to 2005 vehicle for that body style, Audi has probably sold over 1 million of those globally, because it's an A4, which is one of the starting cars for Audi. And there's nothing you're going to experience that somebody else hasn't. All the guesswork is gone. Look it up. I'll help you fix it when I get home. But I don't want to do the guesswork of finding out what's wrong with it when you have the power at the end of your fingertips. Now, he researches the hell out of everything, and he knows more about a lot of shit than I do, or he thinks he does. And sometimes he does. Sometimes he doesn't. So I didn't want that. I wanted something cool and different. So I'm online and I'm scrolling. I'm looking at different things. I'm looking at these little import K vehicles. That's what they're called. KEI is pronounced K. Now, a K-class vehicle is limited over there in Japan to like 60 horsepower. They range from 47 horsepower. I think that's what my friend's Honda Beat has, to the one that I bought, which is a turbo, which is like 63 horsepower. 63 horsepower, I don't know, 69 foot of torque, whatever. But I found this thing, and it's called a Honda Z. I go, oh, this thing is cute. I'm okay with using the word cute. This thing is cute. So I started reading up on it, and okay, so if I get something like this, first off, there's hardly any in the United States. I Googled it, and a company was selling one last November that was all overlanded up, which means built for off-road. It was lifted, bigger tires, had a rack on the roof, super cool. And I found one on Cars and Bids, which is the auction website, for those of you who have no idea what that is. And that was sold, I don't know, a few months ago. But other than that, there was none for sale in the United States except for one place in Sacramento. And this one happened to have a factory aero kit, different wheels. It had a lot of stuff going on. There's a big bull, a decal on it that obviously I'm going to take off because I have my own decal that I like to put on cars. Yeah, so this thing has these bull decals on it. And I would imagine the previous owner, or one of the previous owners, because this thing has 91,000 miles on it, or 144 kilometers, 144,000 kilometers, which is a lot of mileage. But this thing's been driven. So I understood that. But I ended up getting it for $6,700. They had it listed for, I think, $7,700. You have them $1,000 deposit. And I actually put the deposit down on my birthday on February 9th. But as you guys know from the last couple episodes, I had an issue dealing with, and I'll say the bank, SoFi. It got approved, but I was dealing with people who weren't quite understanding what it is I needed. And so I talked about that in the previous episodes. The vehicle's here. The vehicle's awesome. So it's called a Honda Z UM4, and it's an all-wheel drive turbo. And I drove it from the truck, the shipping truck, who stopped out in the middle of the major street, Warner. And he didn't even stop on my side of the subdivision. He stopped in the center where the turn lane is. And so I walked over there. He unloaded the car, and I crossed traffic and then drove into my subdivision and parked it in the garage. And then that night, I took it out and drove around my subdivision. I went to go get the mail and just kind of drove around for a while, 5-10 minutes, just to kind of get used to the car. I kept turning the windshield wipers on instead of the turn signal on. So that's the thing. So now I'm on the right-hand side of the car because it's a Japanese import. So I still put the key in on the right side, but the turn signal up and down is on the right instead of the wipers. And then on the left, of course, it's the wipers. So everything's kind of reversed. When I drove the Honda Integra in Wisconsin, that was a manual. And so I'm not afraid to drive a manual. And that's actually the second time. 2016, I drove a Honda Vamos, V-A-M-O-S. You can look that up. I don't even know how to describe it. It's an ugly little vehicle. It looks kind of like a Volkswagen Thing, which you may not know what that is. But the Vamos looks like something they would use on a military base or an airport. Not something you would expect to ever see on the main roads. It does have headlights. It does have taillights. And I drove it during a parade, not on the main road. I think they trailered it over there and then took it off. Yeah. We trailered it. Because it's the people I was with. We trailered the Vamos in like a Honda. I think it's called a T350 or T360. This little tiny, cute little thing. But those are the only two times I've driven a right-hand drive manual. So I was excited to get an automatic, and this thing only comes in automatic. They made it from 1998 to 2002. There's a 70s version, which looks kind of like a super old Civic or super old Accord. This thing just looks, the best way I can describe it is a micro SUV. So you could look it up, Honda Z, and then it's called a PA1, like Pennsylvania, a PA1. Otherwise, if you look up Honda Z, you may see this. You may see the CRZ. You may see the S600. But this one or you may see a motorcycle. But this one specifically, in order to pull up exactly what it is that I bought, you want to type in Honda space Z like Z space PA1. And you'll probably see the one that I bought because I bought it from a place called Vans from Japan. So go ahead and look it up right now while you're listening, and you're going to say, "Oh my God, that's so cute." So yeah, that's my new vehicle. I want to get a new steering wheel for it because when I got in the vehicle, I went to move the chair back and it was already as far back as possible. The steering wheel is kind of big given the size of the small car. And the car isn't as small as you would think because it comes with 15-inch wheels. And that may not mean anything to some of you, but to others, you understand that it's almost a normal size vehicle. So if you could take a 90s American Honda and turn it into an SUV of the same size, that's what this thing is. and I had to clear away a lot of room in the garage, but it's in there. I sold my cabinets, sold my old set of NSX wheels, sold a bunch of shit to make room. But yeah, I want to change out the steering wheel. I want to get the car cleaned up, maybe get some wheels for it, and have fun with it. Insurance is going to cost me $300 or $400 a year. As of right now, I have not registered it yet because I went to the DMV this morning and it says it needs a level 1 inspection, and I didn't drive the vehicle there. I drove my Infiniti there. And so that means they just want to make sure that the VIN matches, the make and model matches, and the mileage on the odometer matches the paperwork, which is super easy. Another thing though, because I went to the DMV yesterday and I walked in, and it's the last day of the month, right? It's February, the last day of the month where registrations expire, and I walk in there, there's like 150 people in line, but then there was nobody in the appointment line. So I said, forget this. I don't want to stand in line for an hour and a half just to be told that I need to come back, which is kind of what happened this morning. Is I have to come back, but I didn't have to stand in line more than 20 seconds. But I noticed that the DMV, and maybe it's because they have so many people working now, there is no more ticketing system. The old traditional take a ticket and wait for your number to be called and sit down. There weren't chairs everywhere. There was a few chairs in there, but it was just kind of a line that went back and forth like a theme park line to get on a roller coaster. One thing I can think of is there's so many people working there, they're able to get through that line relatively quickly. Whereas before, how many of you have walked into your Department of Motor Vehicles and there's 20 people in line and there's 3 windows open, but one person isn't at their desk because they're on the phone or they're talking to somebody else in the back, or you can see them back there killing a sandwich because they're on break and you're looking at them angry because you wish they'd eat their sandwich a lot faster because you need to get the hell out of there. But it's interesting. So let me know, whether you email me, whether you text me, whether you post it somewhere, what is your Department of Motor Vehicles looking like? And it's not that many of you have to go in there very often. I don't remember the last time I went to the DMV. It was for my Infiniti. 2 years ago when I got the first license plate, my Fat X, back in, they still had the big glass up there because of COVID, although it was kind of in the end of the COVID era. But I don't remember even then if they had the ticketing system. I think they did. The big digital thing on the wall that tells you now serving number 86. So next Tuesday when I get back from New Orleans, or actually tomorrow, technically, if you're listening to this on Monday, which is the only way you would be listening to it. So either it's tomorrow for some of you, or it's a few days ago or weeks ago, depending on how long it takes you to listen to this episode. But I'm pretty excited about it. I'm excited to have something that's a little unique, different, fun. 4 seats. The motor is actually behind the rear passengers, but in the floor. Hard to explain. Again, go to Vans for Japan, or just type in the vehicle and you'll see mine pop up as the one with the bull on there. And then click through the 189 pictures if you want to see in more granularity what I purchased. If this was your first time listening to this podcast, thank you. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and check it out, whether you're listening on a podcast provider or you found me on YouTube. Thank you. Speaking of YouTube, the Hard Parking Media channel, since this has been on the RSS feed, probably about a month now, I checked the account because I have 2 YouTube accounts, so I don't spend a lot of time on the Hard Parking Media account. But I recently checked it, and those hours have shot up to the point in the last year to where I can start to monetize a little bit. So whether it's $20 a month from people listening or $30 a month for people listening, thank you for those of you who are actually streaming this on YouTube. Not a lot of graphics, it's just audio. But it's crazy because I didn't think that was ever going to happen. It's so hard to grow a podcast on YouTube unless you do video and you say a bunch of silly shit. Either you say a bunch of silly shit, you talk about politics, you have famous people on the podcast all the time, not just sometimes like I do, or you have, well, let's just say, personalities and visual people that the world likes to watch speak. If that makes any sense, fill in the blank. When it comes to a podcast, or it's such a focus, if this was the Game of Thrones podcast, it would be booming during the Game of Thrones run for 10 or 11 years, but it probably wouldn't be very booming right now because unless we're talking about House of Dragons, which I haven't seen yet. Anyway, it's incredibly hard to grow. And you may have wondered if you subscribe or you watch my content often, why I don't do car review videos as much anymore, and I just don't produce much content for that page, is because I could spend 30, 40 hours making a video that's 12 to 15 minutes long, and no one's going to watch it. And so you have to redirect your focus onto things. And this podcast, I don't care if you watch the podcast. You can listen to the podcast, but I'm still going to record every week for the people who listen to it audibly instead of watch it on YouTube. But thank you for those of you who have done that and have actually pushed me over that threshold to where now I can start monetizing a little bit. It still needs, in order to make a living off of YouTube, you got to be killing it, honestly. You need Patreons on YouTube, and you need this, you need that. My other YouTube page is getting there. I spent a lot of time on that too. And it's disappointing that it hasn't taken off as much as I would have sworn. I would have placed $20,000 on it, taken off faster than it did. Thank God I didn't have that kind of money to place that kind of bet. But it's also getting there. So one day I'll have revenue from both, and I still won't be able to live off of it, but it's going to pay for things like wheels on the Honda Z, right? It's going to pay for shit on the NSX. Little things that my wife gets mad if I ask her to help me out with. So one thing, Right Honda and Right Toyota, 4wheelonline.com, sell shop wireless services. AutoCannon officially licensed Honda and Acura gear. I think they're getting ready to push out some of their new collection, their HRC collection. I saw it online. It looks great. Also, Patreon business supporter, Automotive Specialty Tool out of Owings Mills, Maryland. Koya Automotive out of Warner Garden, Florida. Pell Construction out of Conroe, Michigan. Big House Small Home Design out of Ashburn, Virginia, and Traverse City, Michigan. Shaping Success with Wes Tinkersley out of Boise, Idaho. If you're in a position to help the podcast upgrade, you can join for as little as $3 a month and get access to bonus audio as well as show swag. Speaking of show swag, some of you are getting 2 shirts, some of you are getting 1 shirt. But you're getting shirts. And I finally got around to making special podcast-specific shirts. And then there's the regular hard parking shirt, which I still haven't updated to put on the website, although I've been saying I'm going to do that now for 2 months. I want to thank Mark Stolman, Catherine Cox, Eddie Ramos, Richard Graves, Byron Jones, Bo Jung, Alice Gamina, Drew Bunkley, and Yasu Chiba. Email the show, hardparkingpodcast@gmail.com, which none of you do other than Yasu. Follow me on Instagram at Jhae Pfenning. Join the Hard Parking Violations Facebook group or the Hard Parking channel on my Instagram, because I can't grow without you telling the world how great this show is. Let's do this. Let's grow this thing together. I'll talk to you all next week.
Shut up!